Lily James had always known she was different from the rest of her family. While her parents, John and Catherine, doted on her younger sister Sophie, Lily often felt like a shadow, never truly seen or understood. Her parents showered Sophie with praise, always celebrating her achievements, no matter how small, while Lily's accomplishments were overlooked, or worse, dismissed. Lily had grown accustomed to the silence that followed her victories, the quiet emptiness that echoed in the rooms when she received yet another award or recognition for her scientific prowess. It was as though, despite her excellence, she was invisible to the people who should have loved her the most. Growing up, Lily had always been drawn to the world of discovery. From a young age, she was fascinated by the way things worked. She spent hours in her makeshift laboratory, often in the corner of her bedroom, mixing chemicals and observing reactions, her mind racing with the endless possibilities of the natural world. But these pursuits, these passions, were foreign to her family. They saw them as strange, even burdensome. Her parents expected her to follow a more conventional path, one that fit the mold of the perfect daughter. They pushed her to engage in social activities, to be like Sophie, to be more normal. But Lily couldn't bring herself to fit into that mold. She wasn't interested in the latest fashion trends or gossip from school. She was obsessed with the mysteries of life, with questions that couldn't be answered in a textbook. And that difference made her feel like an outsider in her own home. Sophie, on the other hand, embodied everything their parents wanted in a daughter. She was beautiful, charming, and effortlessly popular. Sophie thrived in the spotlight, whether it was at school talent shows, dance competitions, or family gatherings. Her life seemed to revolve around socializing, and their parents were more than happy to encourage this. They praised Sophie's every move, lavished her with attention, and indulged her every whim. It was as though Sophie could do no wrong. Her success was easy, expected, and natural. For Lily, success never came easily. She had to fight for every bit of recognition she received. Yet no matter how hard she worked, it was never enough. It wasn't just that her family didn't acknowledge her achievements. It was that they actively discouraged her. She was often told that her passion for science was a phase, something she would grow out of. Her parents' dismissive comments stung, but what hurt most was the silence. The silence that followed her as she won national awards. The silence when she was accepted into one of the top universities in the country on a full scholarship. There were no celebratory dinners, no proud smiles, no "we're so proud of you." There was only Sophie who effortlessly sailed through life, basking in the adoration of their parents. Lily's relationship with her family was complicated, but it was her grandfather, Grandpa Thomas, who had always been her refuge.
From the moment she was born, Thomas had taken a special interest in her. He saw something in Lily that no one else did: a quiet brilliance, a fierce curiosity, and a relentless drive to understand the world around her. Grandpa Thomas never told Lily to stop asking questions or to stop dreaming. Instead, he encouraged her. He gave her books on science, took her on trips to museums, and spent countless afternoons with her in his study, discussing everything from biology to astronomy. Grandpa Thomas was her protector, her mentor, and, most importantly, her champion. As a young girl, Lily had never felt more at home than when she was with her grandfather. Unlike her parents, who treated her intellectual pursuits as something to be tolerated, Thomas celebrated them. He was the one who believed in her even when she doubted herself. He told her that she could change the world, that her mind was her greatest gift. In his eyes, she wasn't too much. She wasn't an outsider. She was exactly who she was meant to be. And for Lily, those words became a lifeline. In a family that didn't understand her, her grandfather's belief in her was the only thing that kept her going. But despite the unshakable bond she had with her grandfather, Lily couldn't escape the feeling that she was invisible to her parents. They would never understand her the way Thomas did.
They couldn't see beyond Sophie's shine, couldn't see the depth in their older daughter's heart and mind. The more Lily excelled, the more she withdrew. She learned to keep her accomplishments to herself, to seek validation from people outside her family, teachers, mentors, and even strangers who saw her for what she was. But when she came home, the world she returned to was one where her achievements were buried beneath the weight of Sophie's more traditional successes. When Lily left for university, it was both a relief and a heartbreaking goodbye. She was finally escaping the suffocating expectations of her family, leaving behind the silence that had haunted her for so long. For the first time in her life, she felt like she could breathe. The campus was a world of possibility, where she wasn't just the odd one out, but someone who was finally valued for her intellect. She found friends who shared her passions, people who didn't look at her as if she were strange or out of place. It was here, in this new environment, that Lily began to thrive. She joined research programs, presented at academic conferences, and made groundbreaking discoveries in the field of environmental science. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was seen for who she truly was. Yet, even with all her accomplishments, there remained a void in Lily's heart. She missed her grandfather. Despite her growing independence, there was a part of her that longed for his approval, for his words of encouragement. She would call him every week, excited to share her progress, to hear his thoughts on her latest findings. But as the weeks passed, those calls grew less frequent. She knew that her grandfather was getting older, that his health was starting to decline. But every time she called home, her parents assured her that everything was fine, that Grandpa Thomas was doing okay. They never mentioned that he was struggling, that his time was running out. And when she tried to visit him during her breaks, Sophie, ever the gatekeeper to their family's secrets, would intercept. "Grandpa's fine," Sophie would say with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "He doesn't need you to worry."
So, Lily's gut told her something was wrong, but she chose to trust her family. She couldn't have known then that the lies her parents were telling her would unravel the moment she returned home for the funeral. It was only after Grandpa Thomas's death, when she arrived at the church for the service, that the full extent of her family's betrayal became clear.
For all the years Lily had spent fighting for her place in her family, for all the times she had been overlooked, the realization that her own parents, her mother and father, had kept her away from her grandfather in his final days was a gut-wrenching blow. The same parents who had never seen her achievements for what they were now actively conspired to keep her from the one person who had ever truly believed in her. This was no longer just a matter of neglect. This was manipulation.
And it would be the start of a fight that Lily was not prepared to face. Lily stood in the middle of her apartment, the faint hum of the fluorescent lights above her doing little to ease the weight on her chest. The phone call had come suddenly, and the words seemed to hang in the air, lingering like a storm cloud. Her mind raced as she tried to process the news, her body frozen in disbelief.
"Rosalind," her mother's voice had sounded cold, emotionless. "Your grandfather, he passed away last night." The words shattered her, each syllable reverberating through her body. Her grandfather, Grandpa Thomas, the only person who had ever truly believed in her, who had shown her what it meant to be loved and supported, was gone. He was gone, and she hadn't been there. Her chest tightened, and her throat burned as she struggled to hold back the tears that threatened to spill over. The room around her seemed to tilt, and for a moment she could barely breathe. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't prepared herself for the phone call, for the crushing weight of hearing that the one constant in her life had been taken away so suddenly. She had been too focused on her own world, her own research, her studies. It wasn't that she hadn't known her grandfather's health had been declining. She had, of course.
He had mentioned it on the phone, and the last time they spoke, his voice had been weaker, his words slower. But she had never imagined this. Never imagined that he would be taken from her so quickly, and never imagined that, in his final moments, she wouldn't be there at his side. The tears welled up in her eyes now, but she wiped them away angrily. This was her fault. She had been so wrapped up in her work, in her own life, that she hadn't seen it coming.
She hadn't taken the time to be there for him, to visit him, to check in like she should have. and now she couldn't even say goodbye. Her mind replayed the last time she had visited home. She had called as usual to see how her grandfather was doing, but Sophie had answered. Sophie, who always seemed to have an answer for everything, had assured Lily that everything was fine. "He's fine, Rosalind. Don't worry. Grandpa's just old. He'll be okay."
Right. Sophie's voice had been light, dismissive even, as if she didn't understand, or perhaps didn't care, that Lily's grandfather was the only real family member who had ever supported her, the only person who had ever truly understood her. The funeral was scheduled for 2 days later. As Lily made her way back to her childhood home, the weight of the loss pressed down on her chest, and her mind was clouded with doubt. She couldn't stop thinking about Sophie's voice on the phone, about the way her sister had always managed to make everything seem like it wasn't a big deal. Her stomach churned at the thought of her parents, John and Catherine, who had never once shown any interest in Lily's academic pursuits, who had never bothered to understand why science was so important to her. They had always focused on Sophie, on her social life, on her beauty, on the things that were easy to understand. Lily had always been the odd one out. But Grandpa Thomas, Grandpa had seen her. He had encouraged her. He had believed in her when no one else did. As Lily drove to the church, a growing sense of dread took hold of her. The streets seemed eerily quiet, and the world around her seemed to move in slow motion. She couldn't help but replay the last conversation she'd had with her parents. "Grandpa's fine," they had told her. But if he had truly been fine, why hadn't they told her he was so sick? Why hadn't they mentioned that he was dying? The more she thought about it, the more the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. She had been shut out. Her family had kept her in the dark, deliberately. And now, as she pulled up to the church parking lot, a cold knot formed in her stomach. Something wasn't right. She parked her car, her heart hammering in her chest. The church was empty, the parking lot deserted. A few moments passed before she hesitantly stepped inside. The hall was silent, save for the distant hum of cleaning machines and the smell of disinfectant. She wandered down the long aisle, unsure of what she was looking for, until she saw a custodian sweeping the floor. He looked up at her, frowning. "The Walker funeral?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Yeah," he replied, his voice flat. "That ended hours ago. It was at 10 a.m. Lily froze. The words hit her like a slap across the face. 10 a.m.? No. She had been told 2 p.m. She had written it down. She had double-checked. Her entire body went numb as the realization washed over her. She had been given the wrong time. They had lied to her. With trembling hands, Lily pulled out her phone and dialed her mother's number. She could barely hold the phone steady as the call went through, her heart pounding in her chest. When her mother answered, her voice was as distant as it had been on the phone call. "Oh, Rosalind," her mother sighed, as if speaking to an inconvenience. "You must have mixed up the times. We clearly said 10 a.m. "No," Lily said, her voice shaking. "You said 2 p.m. I wrote it down. I know what I heard." Her mother's tone shifted, suddenly curt and dismissive. "Well, that's the way it is. Grandpa's funeral was this morning. I'm sorry you missed it." She paused. "And Grandma's not here either. She's in a nursing home now. You should go visit her." Lily could feel the bile rise in her throat. "A nursing home?" she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you talking about?" Her mother didn't answer. Instead, she cut the call short. Lily stood there, rooted to the spot, the phone still pressed to her ear. She could feel her heart breaking, the sharp sting of betrayal cutting deeper with every passing second. Her parents hadn't just neglected her. They had intentionally kept her from being there for Grandpa in his final moments. They had lied. They had lied to her, and they had lied to him. Her breath caught in her chest as the weight of the truth sank in. They hadn't told her the truth. They had told her he was fine. They had told her not to worry. They had kept her away from her grandfather when he needed her most. And for what? What could possibly be more important than family? The anger inside Lily was a fire now, burning hot and uncontrollable. How could they? How could they take something so precious from her? How could they keep her away from the man who had loved her, who had supported her, who had always been there when no one else had? Without thinking, she rushed out of the church, her heart beating wildly in her chest. She needed answers. She needed to know why they had done this, and she wasn't going to leave until she got them. Lily arrived at her grandparents' house with a heart full of questions and a mind clouded with confusion. The funeral had already taken place, at 10 a.m., not the 2 p.m. time her parents had given her. The lies, the deceit, the manipulation, they weighed on her like a stone lodged deep within her chest. She had been kept in the dark. She had been misled. And now, she was standing on the threshold of her grandparents' home, unsure of what to expect, but certain of one thing. Everything had changed. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The familiar scent of her grandmother's cooking didn't greet her at the door, and there was no sound of the old grandfather clock ticking away in the hallway. Lily stepped inside cautiously, as if the walls themselves might hold secrets they were waiting to reveal. She stood in the entryway for a moment, trying to steady her breathing. She needed answers. She needed to understand why her family had betrayed her in this way, why they had kept her away from Grandpa Thomas when he had needed her the most. Her grandmother was sitting in the living room, her eyes red from crying, her face pale and drawn. The sight of her grandmother, so frail, so vulnerable, shook Lily to her core. She had always been strong, unwavering, a pillar of support. But now, it was as if the weight of everything that had happened had taken its toll on her. "Grandma?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper, but her grandmother looked up at her, startled, as if she hadn't expected her to show up. She had always been the one who had taken care of everyone else, and now Lily could see that she was struggling to hold it all together. Her grandmother smiled faintly, but the sadness in her eyes was undeniable. "You're here," she said, her voice breaking slightly. I wasn't sure you would come." Lily took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Of course I came, Grandma," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. I had to see you. I had to be here." Her grandmother looked down at her hands, twisting the fabric of her dress nervously. I know you did." She paused, as if gathering her thoughts, before continuing. "But I didn't know how to tell you. About your grandfather's will. About everything." The words hung in the air between them, thick with unspoken truths. Lily felt her heart skip a beat. She had been expecting something like this, but hearing it from her grandmother's lips made it all too real. Her grandfather, the man who had always been her biggest supporter, had left her something that her parents had not even bothered to mention. The very idea of it sent a shiver down Lily's spine. "What do you mean?" Lily asked, her voice barely audible. What did Grandpa leave me?" Her grandmother's gaze softened, and she looked away for a moment, as if she couldn't bear to meet Lily's eyes. "He left you everything. The house, the estate, and the research facility he had built for you. He wanted you to have it, Lily. He always believed in you. He wanted you to have the chance to fulfill your dreams." Lily's breath caught in her throat. A research facility? Her grandfather had built her a research facility? It felt unreal. She had always dreamed of having a space where she could explore her scientific passions without interference. But to hear that her grandfather had made that dream a reality, that he had thought of her even after everything that had happened, was overwhelming. The tears she had been holding back threatened to spill over. "But my parents," Lily began, her voice shaking. "They never said anything about it. They never told me." Her grandmother sighed, a deep, weary sound that seemed to carry all the weight of the years. "They didn't want you to know," she said softly. "They didn't want you to have it. They thought you wouldn't need it. They thought you wouldn't care." Lily felt a cold knot twist in her stomach. Her parents, the people who had raised her, the people who should have supported her, had tried to erase her from her grandfather's legacy. They had manipulated him, convinced him that she didn't need the inheritance, that she didn't deserve it. The anger, the betrayal, surged through her like wildfire. They had lied to her. They had lied to her grandfather. And now, they were going to try to take everything he had left for her. Why? Lily's voice cracked as she spoke, the question escaping her before she could stop it. Why would they do that? Why would they keep me away from Grandpa? Keep me from him in his final moments? Why wouldn't they want me to have what he left me? Her grandmother's eyes filled with tears, and she wiped them away hastily, as if ashamed of her own emotions. They thought you didn't need it. They always thought you were too focused on your science, too focused on your work to care about family. They thought you were too different, too distant. They thought they thought she was the one who needed everything. They never understood you, Lily, not the way your grandfather did. Lily's heart ached with the weight of her grandmother's words. She had always known that her parents didn't understand her, that they didn't see her for who she truly was. But hearing it out loud, hearing the truth of their indifference, was like a slap in the face. They had never cared about her passions, her dreams. They had never cared about the things that made her who she was. And now, in the wake of her grandfather's death, they were trying to erase the one thing he had left her, the only thing that mattered to her. But how? Lily asked, her voice barely a whisper. How did they convince him to do this? How did they make him think that I didn't care? Her grandmother's hands trembled as she reached for the envelope on the table in front of her. I don't know, she said softly. But I know this. Your grandfather didn't want you to have to fight for it. He wanted you to have it without question. He wanted you to know that he believed in you. But I'm afraid that now you're going to have to fight for it anyway. Your parents, Sophie, they won't give up easily. Lily's mind raced, the anger building inside her like a storm. She wasn't going to let them take what was rightfully hers. She wasn't going to let her parents erase her grandfather's legacy, the legacy he had entrusted to her. She wasn't going to let them win. As her grandmother handed her the envelope, Lily felt a surge of determination flood through her. She could feel Grandpa Thomas's presence in that moment, his belief in her, his unwavering faith in her ability to change the world. And for the first time in a long time, Lily felt ready to fight. She wasn't going to let her parents' lies and manipulation define her. She wasn't going to let them take away the one thing her grandfather had given her. She was going to stand up for herself, for her dreams, for everything she had worked for. She would fight for the research facility. She would fight for her future, and she would not back down. Lily sat at the old wooden desk in the research facility her grandfather had built for her, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. The space was hers now, the legacy her grandfather had left her. But instead of the excitement she had once imagined she would feel upon stepping into this dream, she felt nothing but anger. The room was still, too still, the silence amplifying the uncertainty in her heart. She could almost hear her grandfather's voice in the back of her mind, urging her forward, telling her she could change the world. But those words seemed distant now, swallowed up by the mounting tension she felt toward her family, the very people who should have supported her, but instead had sought to tear everything down. Her parents, John and Catherine, had never understood her. They had never supported her ambitions, and they had always favored Sophie, their younger daughter, the one who had fit the mold of what they considered normal. Sophie, with her beauty, charm, and seemingly effortless way of navigating the world, had always been the golden child. Meanwhile, Lily had been the odd one out, the girl who was too focused, too absorbed in her work to care about anything else. Her parents had criticized her, had belittled her passion for science, and had dismissed her achievements as insignificant compared to Sophie's social successes. But now, after Grandpa Thomas's death, after the betrayal and the lies, everything had changed. They had crossed a line. Lily's eyes scanned the papers in front of her. The legal documents, the correspondence from the lawyer. Everything was so official, so cold. It felt like another world, one that didn't belong to her. But she was here now. This facility was hers, and she wasn't going to let her parents destroy it. She couldn't. Not after everything Grandpa Thomas had done for her. Not after all the times he had believed in her when no one else had. Not after the final act of kindness he had shown her by building her this sanctuary to pursue her work, to follow her dreams. Her mind kept returning to the will. Grandpa Thomas had left her everything. The house, the research facility, everything. And yet, her parents had tried to erase that legacy. They had tried to make her believe that she didn't deserve it, that she didn't need it. They had told her that Sophie was the one who needed everything. They had manipulated him in his final days, convincing him that Lily was too absorbed in her work, too distant from her family to care about the inheritance. It was all a lie. They had lied to her grandfather. They had lied to her. And now they expected her to just accept it. But Lily wasn't going to let that happen. She wasn't going to let her parents strip away the one thing her grandfather had left her. She was going to fight for it, fight for what was rightfully hers, and she would not be silenced. The anger that had been simmering beneath the surface for so long now bubbled to the forefront, and she welcomed it. She needed that anger. It was the fire she would use to fuel the fight ahead. The lawyer had been clear. This would not be an easy battle. Her parents were not going to give up without a fight. They would do whatever it took to keep control of the inheritance, and Sophie, as always, would be right there with them, playing her part. Lily had expected that. She had known that her family would not simply hand over what Grandpa had left her, but what she hadn't anticipated was just how far they would go to manipulate the situation. They had kept her away from Grandpa Thomas during his final days, convincing him that she didn't care, that she was too busy with her own life to visit him, to be there when he needed her. And now they expected her to just back down. But Lily wasn't going to let them win. She was stronger than that. She was determined to make sure that her grandfather's legacy lived on, not just in the research facility, but in the work she would do here, the discoveries she would make, the lives she would touch. This was her chance to prove herself, to show the world, and most importantly, to show her family, that she was more than just the girl they had dismissed all these years. She stood up from the desk and walked to the large window that overlooked the facility grounds. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the property. The space that her grandfather had built for her now felt like a battleground, the stakes higher than ever before. She could see it clearly in her mind, the moment when her parents would come to try to take it all from her, the confrontation that was coming. They would try to convince her to give it up. They would try to guilt her into walking away. They would use everything they had, everything they knew about her, to manipulate her into submission. But Lily was ready. The door to the office creaked open behind her, and she turned to see her lawyer, Michael, standing in the doorway. His face was serious, his posture tense. He knew what was coming. He had seen families torn apart by greed, by manipulation, by entitlement. But this was different. This was her family, and Michael could see the pain in her eyes. He knew what her parents had done to her. "We need to talk strategy," Michael said, his voice low but firm. "Your parents are going to fight this every step of the way. They've already made it clear that they won't let you walk away with everything without a battle. They'll use every trick in the book to try and get their hands on this facility, on your inheritance. But you're not alone in this, Lily. I'm here, and I'll fight alongside you." Lily nodded, her resolve hardening. "I know," she said, her voice steady now. "I won't back down. I won't let them take it from me. Not after everything Grandpa did for me. Not after everything he believed in me for." Michael studied her for a moment, his eyes narrowing as if weighing the decision before speaking. "This is going to be tough. It's not just about the property or the research facility. It's about everything your parents have done to you over the years. They've made you feel small, like you don't matter. They've used you, manipulated you, and now they're trying to take what's yours. But this time, you get to decide. You get to fight for what's yours." Lily felt a surge of emotion flood through her. The anger she had been holding onto for so long was now joined by something else: determination. She wasn't just fighting for the facility, she was fighting for herself, for her future, for everything that her family had tried to take away from her. She was going to stand up, and she wasn't going to let them erase her from this story. "I'm ready," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "Let's do this." Over the next few days, as the legal proceedings began to unfold, Lily felt the weight of the battle ahead. Every step felt like a challenge, but she faced each one with a newfound strength. Her parents, as expected, fought her at every turn, trying to undermine her at every opportunity. They told the courts that she didn't need the inheritance, that she wasn't fit to carry on her grandfather's legacy. They painted her as someone who was too focused on her career to care about family. They did everything they could to discredit her, to make her seem like she didn't deserve what was rightfully hers. But Lily didn't flinch. She didn't back down. She fought back with everything she had. She dug deep into her grandfather's research, into the work they had done together. She used his letters, his notes, his words, to show the world what he had truly believed in. She showed them all the work she had done, the countless hours spent in labs, in experiments, in classrooms. She showed them that she was more than just a woman with a dream. She was a woman with a purpose. And that purpose was to continue the work her grandfather had started. The court battle was long and exhausting, but as the final ruling came down, Lily stood tall. She had won. The facility, the inheritance, everything her grandfather had left her was hers. It was a victory not just for her, but for the memory of the man who had always believed in her, always stood by her. It was a victory for the future she had worked so hard to build. In the end, Lily had proved more than just her right to the inheritance. She had proved to herself that she was capable of standing up for what was hers, and in doing so, she had honored her grandfather's memory, the legacy he had left behind, and the strength he had always known she possessed. Lily stood at the edge of the research facility, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows over the grounds. The once unfamiliar space was now hers, yet it felt both comforting and overwhelming. The reality of her victory, of reclaiming the legacy her grandfather had entrusted to her, had set in over the past few days, but it was still difficult for her to fully grasp the magnitude of it. Everything had changed. The battle she had fought, the emotions she had confronted, and the decisions she had made had all led her here. Standing in this very moment, at the threshold of a new life, it was as if she were standing at the crossroads of who she had been and who she was becoming. The legal battle had been fierce. Every argument her parents had made, every lie they had told, had been an assault on not just her inheritance, but on her very sense of self. For so long, Lily had been the one to shrink back, the one to accept the hurt, the one who allowed her family to dictate her worth. But in this fight, she had stood tall, finding strength she didn't know she had. She had shown them that she was more than just the daughter who didn't fit into their world. She was more than the girl they had cast aside for being too different. She had proven that her grandfather's belief in her wasn't misplaced, that she deserved this space, this opportunity, this future. As the door of the facility creaked open, Lily felt the weight of her grandfather's presence in every corner of the room. His legacy was not just the walls of the building or the equipment it housed. It was the vision he had for her. The space was meant to be a sanctuary, a place where she could explore the endless possibilities of her research, where she could push the boundaries of science and contribute something meaningful to the world. But now, it was also a symbol of her resilience, her defiance, and her newfound sense of purpose. She walked through the facility, her footsteps echoing in the silence, the air thick with the promise of what was to come. Her mind raced with ideas, with plans, with hopes for the future. The research she had long dreamed of conducting now had a home. The work that had once been confined to makeshift labs and borrowed spaces could finally be realized on her terms. She could focus entirely on her science, without the constant pressure to conform to anyone's expectations, without the constant feeling that she was being dismissed or overlooked. She was in control now, and the possibilities were endless. But even as she stood there, surrounded by the space that represented her victory, she couldn't shake the memories of the struggle, the sacrifices, and the emotional toll the past months had taken on her. She had fought not just for her inheritance, but for her right to exist on her own terms. She had fought against the family who had never understood her, the parents who had sought to diminish her accomplishments, and the sister who had been complicit in it all. The betrayal had been deep, and the scars it left would take time to heal. But in the quiet moments of reflection, Lily understood something profound. The fight had not just been about her inheritance. It had been about her reclaiming her life, her voice, and her sense of identity. Lily had never truly understood the concept of family until now. For so long, she had wanted their approval, their recognition. She had wanted to be seen by her parents, to be valued for who she was. But what she had come to realize in the wake of the battle was that family was not just about blood. It was not about those who simply shared your name or your lineage. Family was about the people who believed in you, who supported you when the world seemed determined to tear you down. It was about the ones who stood by you, not because of obligation, but because they truly cared for you. Grandpa Thomas had been that family to her, and though he was gone, his belief in her still burned brightly within her heart. In the days that followed the court ruling, Lily found herself wrestling with the loss. The finality of Grandpa Thomas's passing had hit her harder than she had expected. Even though she had won the fight for the facility, even though she had reclaimed what was rightfully hers, there was still a sense of emptiness, a void that could never be filled. No victory, no achievement could bring him back. She had never been able to tell him how much he meant to her, how much his support had shaped her into the woman she had become. It was a pain that lingered, that whispered in the quiet corners of her mind. But she also understood that his legacy would live on in the work she did, in the research she would continue to build upon, in the impact she would have on the world. His belief in her was the foundation upon which she would build the rest of her life. Lily found solace in her work. She threw herself into the research facility with a sense of purpose that had been absent for years. The lab became her sanctuary, her refuge from the storm of emotions that had threatened to overwhelm her. It was in these quiet moments of scientific discovery that she felt closest to Grandpa Thomas. His words echoed in her mind as she worked, words of encouragement, words of belief. He had always known that she was capable of greatness, and now she was determined to prove it. With each passing day, Lily felt herself becoming more and more at peace with the past. The confrontation with her parents, the betrayal, the lies, all of it was now behind her. It had been hard, unbearably hard at times, but she had emerged from the battle stronger, more determined, and more self-assured. She had learned the hard way that her worth was not defined by her family's approval, by their expectations, or by the standards they had set for her. She had learned that her worth was inherent, that her passions were valid, and that she was deserving of all the opportunities that had been given to her. One afternoon, as she sat in the lab, surrounded by papers and data, Lily allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. She thought about everything that had led her to this point, the struggles, the pain, the moments of doubt, and she smiled. She had done it. She had fought for what was hers, and she had won. But more importantly, she had found herself in the process. She had found the strength to stand up to her family, to stand up to the world, and to claim her place in it. The journey was far from over. There were still challenges ahead, still battles to be fought. But Lily knew now that she was ready. She had the facility. She had the research. And, most importantly, she had the confidence to follow her own path, regardless of the obstacles that lay in her way. She was no longer the girl who had been overshadowed by her sister, no longer the daughter who had been ignored by her parents. She was Lily James, a woman with a purpose, a scientist with a mission, and a person who had finally found her voice. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the facility, Lily took a deep breath, looking out over the land her grandfather had gifted her. This was her future. This was her legacy, and she was ready to make it her own. Lily's journey was one of profound transformation, an emotional roller coaster that took her from the depths of betrayal and neglect to the pinnacle of personal empowerment and triumph. For so long, Lily had felt invisible, overshadowed by her younger sister Sophie, and disregarded by her parents. The love and support she craved from her family were always reserved for others, While Sophie thrived in the social spotlight, Lily immersed herself in the world of science, driven by a passion that no one else understood. Yet, it was in this very pursuit, in her dedication to the things that truly mattered to her, that Lily would eventually find the strength to confront the family who had never truly seen her. When her beloved grandfather, Grandpa Thomas, passed away, Lily found herself thrust into a whirlwind of grief and betrayal. The very people who should have been by her side during this difficult time, the ones who should have supported her, were the ones who tried to erase her from the family's legacy. Her parents, always quick to dismiss her accomplishments, had manipulated Grandpa Thomas in his final days, convincing him that she didn't care about the inheritance he left behind. The deceit, the lies, and the coldness of her family broke her heart, but they also ignited a fire within her, a fire that would drive her to reclaim her rightful place. Through the legal battle that ensued, Lily's resolve only grew stronger. She discovered the painful truth about her family's actions and had to come to terms with the fact that the people she had loved and trusted most had turned their backs on her. But through this pain, she also realized something monumental. Her worth was never determined by her family's approval. She was valuable, worthy, and deserving of the opportunities that had been given to her. Her grandfather had always believed in her, and now it was time for Lily to believe in herself. She stood tall in the face of adversity, refusing to let her family's betrayal define her. With every step forward, she reclaimed a piece of herself and solidified her future. The research facility her grandfather had left her was more than just a physical space. It was a symbol of everything Lily had fought for. It represented her grandfather's unwavering faith in her, her own growth as a person, and the realization that she was capable of standing up for what she believed in. The work she would do in that facility was not just about scientific discovery. It was about proving to herself, and to the world, that she was more than the sum of her family's expectations. The victory she won was not just about the inheritance. It was about reclaiming her voice, her dreams, and her independence. Through this journey, Lily learned several crucial lessons. First and foremost, she learned that self-worth should never be dependent on the approval of others, especially those who cannot see or understand your value. She realized that the people who truly matter in your life are the ones who believe in you, who support you unconditionally, and who celebrate your success. Family, while important, is not just about blood. It's about the people who choose to stand by your side and encourage you to become the best version of yourself. Lily's story serves as a powerful reminder that we must never allow others to define us or diminish our dreams. We must define our own worth and take ownership of our lives, no matter how difficult the path may be. Another valuable lesson Lily's journey offers is the importance of resilience and perseverance. Life will throw obstacles in our way, sometimes from the people we least expect it, those who are closest to us. But it's how we respond to these challenges that ultimately shapes who we become. Lily could have easily given up. She could have accepted the lies, retreated into herself, and allowed her family's manipulation to dictate her future. But she chose a different path. She chose to fight, to stand up for herself, and to honor the legacy her grandfather had left her. This is the essence of resilience, refusing to let adversity define you, and instead, using it as fuel to propel you toward a brighter, more empowered future. Lily also demonstrated the power of embracing your passions and staying true to yourself, even when the world tries to make you conform to its expectations. She could have abandoned her love for science, just as her family had expected, but instead, she chose to lean into it. By doing so, she not only found fulfillment, but also a sense of purpose and strength. It's a reminder that our passions are what make us unique, and they are the key to our success and happiness. Embracing who we truly are, regardless of what others think, is the first step toward living a life that is authentically ours. Finally, Lily's story teaches us the importance of taking control of our future. The decisions we make today shape the lives we lead tomorrow. While we cannot always control the actions of others, we have the power to control how we respond. By choosing to take charge of her destiny, Lily reclaimed her power, her purpose, and her future. She chose to write her own story, and in doing so, she created a legacy that was uniquely hers, one rooted in her own strength, her own beliefs, and her own unwavering determination to succeed. So, what can we take from Lily's story and apply to our own lives? First, we must understand that we are not defined by the opinions or expectations of others. Whether it's family, friends, or society at large, we must remember that our worth comes from within. It is important to believe in ourselves and our abilities, even when others may not see our value. Second, we must cultivate resilience. Life is full of challenges, and it's easy to feel defeated when faced with setbacks. But like Lily, we must dig deep, find our inner strength, and keep moving forward, no matter how difficult the road may seem. Third, we should never abandon our passions. In pursuing what we love, we find purpose and fulfillment, and we create a life that feels authentic. Finally, we must take control of our own future. We are the architects of our lives, and by making deliberate choices and staying true to our dreams, we can shape our own destinies. Lily's story is a testament to the power of believing in yourself, of standing up for what is rightfully yours, and of never allowing anyone to take away what you've worked so hard for. Her journey is one of resilience, of embracing who you are, and of fighting for a future that reflects your true potential. If you've found inspiration in Lily's story and believe in the power of resilience, self-worth, and following your dreams, then make sure to subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just supporting us, you're joining a community of people who are committed to living life authentically, to standing up for what's right, and to never letting anything or anyone hold us back. Stay tuned for more stories that will motivate and empower you to keep pushing forward, no matter what challenges life throws your way. Your story is just beginning, and we're here to be a part of it. Don't miss out on the journey. Subscribe now and keep believing in yourself. Quarto Mini!